Have you ever had your whole life whitewashed? Have you gone through loss where it feels like your life is the tower crashing down? Well, today's video is on starting over again, and this is video 1 of a 2-part series. In today's video, I'm going to go over 5 or 6 different aspects or things that happen to us and the process of what this looks like when our whole life crashes down. This video can also be for anyone who is going through a life change at the moment. It doesn't have to be that your whole life is whitewashed. It can be any big change that's happening in your life. A lot of times when we have change in our life, we resist that change. And so this is about embracing change, learning to move with life instead of resisting what is happening. But first, we're going to look at what that process looks like, and then I will be giving you tips on how to move forward. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Tess. I help my clients with childhood trauma and belief systems that they have cultivated that keep them stuck and small so they can step into their empowerment and freedom. So if you're going through a big change, you want to get out a pen and piece of paper and write down the points that are made today. So then when the second video of this series comes out, you can correlate the two and learn how to move forward in a new way that will benefit you through this change. So what happens when the tower crashes and our life is whitewashed? So somebody may go through a divorce, let's say, and so they have to relocate. They may lose the home that they are living in. They lose the relationship that they are in. They may not be able to see their kids the same way that they were before. They may have financial distress. And so it's a lot of things at once that seem to be crumbling and causing stress. Someone, for example, could go through a career change where they've lost their job and they're displaced and they don't know what to do. This causes a lot of stress within. These situations are incredibly stressful in life. Another example of loss is somebody might get sick and they cultivate a disease. And so they are losing their health within this time. And so this is a very big loss and it's life-changing. Health is so important. And so this can be really, really devastating to somebody that's going through this. There are many things in life that happened where it feels like our world is crushing before our very eyes. So the reason I'm doing this video today is because I see a lot of people having their lives whitewashed right now or going through these huge, massive changes. And I was somebody who went through a huge life whitewash that seemed very traumatic at the time. And this changed my whole trajectory of my life. It literally was like a completely different life and timeline, but the tower had to crash. That meant losing everything down to my car, my home, my relationship, my dogs, my health, everything whitewashed. So this can seem really traumatic when you're going through it, but this is actually a blessing in disguise, although it can feel like it's absolutely excruciating. And so that's why I'm doing today's video, is to help you to come from a new perspective. If you are going through this where it can feel like your whole world is ending, there is a reason this is happening. You have to clear out the old to move into the new. And sometimes that looks really messy and really ugly. So to give you a little bit of a backdrop, when I went through this whitewashing of my life, it was one of the hardest things I've ever had to go through. But in the end, it ended up being the best thing ever to happen to me. And many people that I know that have had their life whitewashed or they've gone through these massive changes and had a lot of loss, in retrospect, it ended up paving the way and clearing the way for better things and new doors to open and show up into their life. And in retrospect, they're really, really happy that it happened. But let's look at the things that happen and the breakdown that happens when you go through something like this, because it's really important to pay attention to your process and honor your process. And that means if you feel like you're completely broken, you want to really acknowledge that and feel that. This process of the breakdown and the tower crashing is actually a very sacred process, although it can feel really, really ugly. And so you are like the caterpillar. You are in the chrysalis, and on the other side, you will become the butterfly. So what does this process of loss look like? So number one, there may be feelings of hopelessness where you feel like you want to give up. You don't see any light at the end of the tunnel. When we have the rug pulled out underneath of us and we have massive loss, it can feel like we are losing everything and that we want to give up. The hurdle that we're faced with can feel like it's all too much. I want you to know that this hopelessness is normal to feel, and it's a part of the process. And the one thing that I can say within this is this too shall pass. It is inevitable and impossible for your situation not to shift and change. But when you are in it, it feels like you're going to be in this space forever, but you will not. It will shift. Number two, so there may be thoughts and beliefs of being a failure and feeling like your life has failed, which isn't true, by the way. But those feelings of being a failure or the beliefs of being a failure can really bring someone down into deep unworthiness and insecurity. So this leads me into number three. So when somebody goes into, I'm a failure, I've lost all these things, and my whole life has crumbled down, everything I've worked for is gone, or let's say my relationship that I've worked so hard on has failed, well, this unworthiness is actually attached to one's identity. And so a lot of times the things on the outside, like our home, our jobs, our partnerships, our cars, our finances, are really attached to our identity. And so when we have these big losses, it's like we're losing a part of our identity. And so in reality, these things are actually have nothing to do with your identity. This is just the conditioning of being human, where we believe things on the outside of us are who we are, but it's not who we are. And so I'm not going to get into that in this video, but I am going to get into that in the next video, in the second part of this series. And this is a really, really important part, because this is the identity that is being crushed within you or challenged within you or completely stripped from you is showing you something. So when our identity is stripped in a way, it can feel incredibly raw and like there's this deep wound within and almost like you're exposed. So when we have this type of loss, it's actually a fracture to the psyche, which is breaking down the ego. So if you feel exposed and open and confused, this is normal to feel when you've gone through something like this. And this is where you're going to want to tune in for the second part of this series, because I'm going to share with you how this is actually a really positive thing and not a negative thing. And so number four, confusion. Confusion is a huge, huge part of this process. Everything can feel very confusing. A lot of people go into fear of the future because their present is crumbling to the ground, which they have worked for within their past. And so the future can look extremely scary because there is a huge fear of the unknown. So people's biggest fear is the fear of the unknown. And so it can feel really, really confusing. So I'm also going to give you tips in the second video on how you can move through this confusion and what you do with this confusion. Number five, when you're going through a big change, there's usually more than just one loss. So you are not only just losing one thing that you're going through, You may have your whole world come crashing down. And so you want to acknowledge that you have more than just one loss. And that's why it can feel like there's this fracture to the psyche where you're being stripped away, because it's so much at once. It can be a complete shock to the system when we have this much loss at once. And number 6, which is one of the most important things, is that you are going through a death, and with death comes grief. With loss comes grief. So it's really important to feel that grief, really acknowledge what you are losing, really acknowledge what's happening within you, and feel all of your feelings. For you to be able to let go, because eventually you will have to let go and you will move on and your life will change. You have to go through the mourning process. And so that's what I'm going to leave you with. If you are in this position to really allow yourself to grieve, and that doesn't matter how long that takes. Everybody's different. Everybody's grief is different when it comes to loss. And so please join me for the second part of this series when it comes out next week, with tips on how to move through everything that I've discussed today. If this is something that you want to work on one-on-one, you can book a discovery session with me, and the link is in the description below. If you have any questions, be sure to leave a comment in the description below, and I would love to have a conversation with you. If you like this video, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and share with your friends. My name is Tess. Thanks for watching.